Koko,
Sandy.
5 minutes. Perfection. Go ahead, you can start.
No, you go ahead and start this one.
Okay. Used to be a perfectionist years ago. Doesn't work. The problem with being a perfectionist is you cannot try new things. You cannot do new things. You're locked in a loop. And especially in relationships. I had relationship rules, which kind of got me around to always surrounding myself with the same women. They had, certain height, certain weight, certain size, certain this, certain that. And tragically, my 3 long-term relationships, all 3 were German-Irish born in the month of May, 2 of which were third cousins, we found out later on. I mean, it's spooky.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah, it's spooky stuff like that, which really has nothing to do with anything, but it's just freaky coincidences when you start getting those kind of relationship rules. And that was more realistically in my perfectionism days. And don't play with that because it makes a big noise.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, no problem. You can't hear it, but anyway, so the problem is you've got to be able to back down. You've got to realize that perfectionism. Well, I used to say perfectionism is an abstraction of reality, because nothing is perfect. And if you struggle to make things perfect, you micromanage and micromanage and micromanage and micromanage to the point where, if you're in a relationship and you're trying to make it perfect,
you're going to micromanage yourself right out of the relationship.
Well, also you just drive the other person completely insane. And then what's even crazier is when both people have a concept of what a perfect relationship is, but they don't communicate what the two are. So it's kind of like Candide, where one wants to be a farmer and the other one wants to live in the big city, and they believe and they're both talking and singing about the 2 different lives, and then at the end they say how wonderful it is they both agree, not realizing that through the whole song they were going back and forth and completely opposite. It's like Green Acres kind of a thing. So
Sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
Guys, it's a perfection. So perfection's always a struggle. You've got to, you really want to avoid that whole concept, because it cannot be of any value, because once again, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. You're afraid to try new things. You're afraid to, and you have to, in relationship, you've always got to be, like we always say, grow grow together, grow separately, grow together, grow separately. I'm trying to stay in frame, but as soon as I shrink the frame, it'll be gone. So anyway, but that's an issue, and it's a struggle for a lot of couples. I know a lot of people, and I talk to them, and I listen to what their concept. I've talked to a lot of women who give me their concept of what a relationship is. And I typically say, well, what about the guy? And it's like, it wasn't part of it, but.
Through all of the people and couples that I've worked with, very few men have voiced what they thought was a perfect relationship. I find that very fascinating, that because, I adore and love the male perspective on things, I would really like to know what men's perception of a perfect relationship
And what's
is.
interesting is a lot of times they don't get the chance to express it, because the women do, and it's like, that's what the relationship's supposed to be.
Well, that's what she says, so that's what I'm going with, right?
It's kind of like
some.
Well, it's like, rather than argue, it's like, it's just easier to just nod your head and yes, honey, yes, honey, yes, honey is a tragic concept in relationship, but a lot of guys, that's the kind of relationship they're in, and it's easier to just say, oh yes, 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 than to actually contribute.
A semi-perfect relationship is transparency, communication, faithfulness, support for one another. There's so many. I mean, I can sit here and list. I can list many. It's just being real. It's this goes back to, if you want a fairy tale, rent a movie. There's no perfect relationship. You have to build together what works for you as a perfect relationship. Whatever that may be. But just don't stop communicating, because the minute you stop communicating, it's going to fall apart.
Actually, if you stop communicating, it's already fallen apart.
Well,
Koko, Sandi, 5.5 minutes. Bye.